Artificial sweeteners remain a controversial topic. A lot of people will try to convince you that they're all poison and they cause all kinds of problems. However, anyone who looks at the medical literature concerning various artificial sweeteners will find that most of them have been, well, not most of them, all of them have been extensively studied in both animal studies and human studies, and most of the scare tactics that you hear about don't really exist. One of my favorite stories, I think it was aspartame, if I remember correctly. Years ago, they did a study where they had two groups of people. One group claimed that they had all kinds of side effects from taking any amount of aspartame, including headaches, gastrointestinal distress. The other group didn't notice any particular complaints, and what they did is they both gave them what was thought to be aspartame, either aspartame or placebo. I think it was a two-part study. This is a while back, so I don't remember the exact details. But the point about the study is that the group that claimed to have side effects from consuming aspartame, at the end of the study, they claimed that had all kinds of headaches and just like they always said, gastrointestinal problems. Well, it turned out they got a placebo. In other words, it wasn't from the aspartame; it was a placebo, and that was typical of a lot of the studies related to aspartame that existed. But more recently, artificial sweeteners have come under fire. Well, erythritol is not really an artificial sweetener, but I mentioned in a past video about a recent study that was in a cardiology journal claiming that erythritol caused blood clots. In the video that I put on my channel here, I explained the problems with the methodology of the study and the fact that it's very unlikely that erythritol will cause blood clots in people without pre-existing problems. So it was basically what they call a false alarm. Now, more recently, other studies have come out implicating other artificial sweeteners as causing heart problems. And some of these are pretty alarming. For example, the World Health Organization made a claim recently that the popular artificial sweetener aspartame can cause cancer. The World Health Organization has a subdivision called the International Agency for Research on Cancer. It's called the IARC, and they're the ones that declared that aspartame, and here's the key words, could possibly cause cancer. Now, the popular media took that out of context, and the headlines all over the internet and elsewhere were proclaiming that aspartame is a carcinogen. A carcinogen is a substance that has the potential to cause cancer. Typical carcinogens are processed meat. Nitrates in processed meat have been implicated in causing stomach cancer. Alcohol has been implicated in causing esophageal cancer. And of course, cigarette smoking and other types of smoking have been implicated in causing lung cancer. Now, the reason why these carcinogens cause cancer is because they damage the cells, especially the DNA. The carcinogens can alter DNA, causing mutations. When the DNA in the cell, deoxyribonucleic acid, basically the blueprint of cellular division, if it's damaged or mutated, you can get a process of uncontrolled cell division, and that's basically cancer. So again, a carcinogen is a substance that causes cancer. In the recent report related to aspartame, the IRA, let's call it the World Health Organization for simplicity, they pointed to three past studies which indicated a positive association between the consumption of artificially sweetened beverages and liver cancer. One of these was a 2022 French study involving 103,000 participants. The study found that those who consumed higher than average amounts of aspartame were at an increased risk for developing breast cancer and cancer related to obesity, such as liver, kidney, and stomach. Now, it's important to note that obesity itself is an independent, regardless of whether you have ingest artificial sweeteners. Obesity itself is a independent risk factor for a number of cancers. I'm not going to go into the reasons why in this video. However, in an upcoming article in my Applied Metabolics publication, I will explain in detail the relationship of having high body fat levels and the onset of several types of cancer, including breast cancer and prostate cancer. In their report, the IARC noted that the chance bias or confounding could not be ruled out as an explanation for these positive findings. That's fancy talk for saying that these things were not written in stone. The studies they found could have had problems in the methodology involving bias or confounding factors, such as maybe the people smoked, maybe they drank too much, maybe they had too much body fat. There are other things that can't be ruled out as the actual cause of the cancers that developed rather than aspartame. The report also highlighted the presence of limited evidence from 3 published animal studies linking aspartame to incidence of tumors, the link was considered to be chronic inflammation. In other words, in these animal studies, a large intake of aspartame caused chronic inflammation. And inflammation or systemic inflammation is associated with a number of degenerative illnesses, including brain degeneration, muscle tissue loss, and cancer. So the carcinogens are classified in 4 categories, 1 to 4, depending on how much evidence is available to link them to human cancer. Now, if a substance falls in category 1, that's strong evidence linking it to human cancer. This would be something like cigarette smoking, excessive alcohol drinking. Those are category 1 carcinogens. Category 4 means there's no available evidence that the substance is related to causing cancer, meaning that it's completely not a non-issue. Aspartame falls into what they call category 2B. That means there's limited evidence of human carcinogenic activity. So in other words, the WHO organization considers it to be possibly carcinogenic to humans, but without definitive evidence. That's an important point. Now, you should also know that the aspartame is one of the most researched of all artificial sweeteners. It's got years and years and thousands of published studies. It's in animals, involving animals and humans, that did not find any relationship between consuming normal amounts of aspartame and causing cancer. Now, the key word there is normal, because the truth of the matter is, and I've said this in past videos, anything consumed in excess can turn bad and cause health problems. If you drink too much water, for example, if you drank a couple of gallons of water, you would dilute the electrolytes in your brain. Your brain wouldn't be able to pass neural or nerve messages. You would go into convulsions and possibly die. You can go on and on. Too much exercise, as everyone knows, instead of getting larger muscles, you wind up shrinking your muscles and losing muscle size. So there's a point where anything becomes dangerous. This is known as hormesis, which is a principle that states substances in small or normal amounts are either beneficial or innocuous, but as soon as it passes a certain point, it can turn toxic. And that's the way you could say that for all these artificial sweeteners. The normal intake of aspartame, there's no association with cancer. Even the WHO organization that issued this report, which was misinterpreted, possibly causing cancer, not probably, possibly. In other words, a very outside chance. I would like to compare this to like buying a lottery ticket. In other words, like when the Powerball or Mega Millions, when it goes up to, let's say, over 600 million or $1 billion, there's a rush to buy tickets Everybody thinks that, well, somebody's going to win, so it could be me, so I'm going to spend my whatever you want to spend on it. Some people buy a $2 ticket. Other people spend, $500 on these tickets, and they ignore the fact that I think it's the Mega Million, and I think it's the Powerball. The odds of winning are 320 million to 1. That's more people than there are in the entire United States. You have a chance of being hit by lightning about 1,000 times greater, 10 times in a row, than getting all 6 numbers on a lottery. So, statisticians and mathematicians have figured out you could play the lottery every day. I forget whether it's every day or every week, for 2,500 years and never get all 6 numbers. But there's a possibility. Obviously, some people do win. So there's a possibility. Is there a probability? No. But there is a possibility, and that's the way you could look at this aspartame situation. There's a tiny, tiny possibility that it can be a carcinogen, and with the caveat that it would have to be huge amounts. When I'm talking huge amounts, I'm talking like maybe 25 cans or more a day of diet soda that has aspartame. You'd have to have huge amounts. Almost nobody consumes the amount of aspartame that would be considered a carcinogen. So let's say a 12-ounce can of diet soda has 192 milligrams of aspartame. An adult weighing 154 pounds would have to drink 14 cans a day to reach the acceptable daily allowance. In other words, even the minimal daily allowance, you'd still have to drink 14 cans of diet soda a day. So you could basically rule out aspartame. Why is aspartame used at all? Because it's 200 times sweeter than sugar. Aspartame itself is just a combination of 2 amino acids. One of them is called aspartic acid. The other one's called phenylalanine. Now, phenylalanine could be problematic for people that have carried 2 genes for a disease called fetal ketonuria, or PKU. For them, they have to be careful of phenylalanine. If you inherited 1 gene for PKU, taking huge amounts of aspartame, and when I'm talking huge amounts, let's say 10 or 14 cans a day, that might cause some symptoms also. So if you have that genetic problem, then you got to be careful. Aspartame was approved way back in 1981 by the Food and Drug Administration. Like I say, it's been tested over the years over and over again, and it's not really any kind of a problem. Now, there's another study that came out, which is a little bit more concerning. This concerns a different. Let me just sum up. Forget this crap about aspartame being a carcinogen. There was a crackpot Italian researcher a couple of years ago who tried to show that providing aspartame to rats caused brain cancer. Again, there was so many flaws in his methodology, and with the study, that it was immediately dismissed by every cancer researcher in the world. It was just garbage. It was never accepted. But it did cause a scare, because that study also made the headlines when this Italian researcher tried to say that aspartame causes brain tumors. It doesn't, not in humans, and certainly not even in rats. It was just a bad study. Now, the other artificial sweetener that's kind of come under fire is called sucralose. Sucralose is basically a kind of a bizarro form of sucrose. It's like a backwards version of sucrose. Sucrose is table sugar. It's a natural disaccharide, meaning it's a combination of 2 sugars. Sucrose is, if I remember correctly, it's I think it's glucose and fructose, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, sucrose, also known as table sugar, very common table sweetener. And what they did, they developed this sucralose. They basically turned the structure of sucrose backwards. and they developed sucralose. And because of its backwards formation, let's say, sucralose cannot be digested by the human body, but it provides some of the, I think even greater, it's 600 times sweetener than sweeter than sucrose, but it still can't really be digested. It's sold under the commercial name of Splenda. Now, regarding the negative study, the study found that sucralose might lead to something called leaky gut. Leaky gut, you have in your gut, there's it's an intact barrier. And if something causes the barrier to open up a little bit, then you could get noxious byproducts from your microbiome, what they call lipopolysaccharides, or LPS. They can enter your blood and cause systemic inflammation, which is very dangerous. So this study tried to say that sucralose can open up the gut, cause leaky gut syndrome. Now, the study came from researchers at North Carolina State University. They also stated, beside the leaky gut finding, they said a chemical formed from sucralose could also damage DNA. And as I said earlier, DNA damage could cause cancer. So now, what happened was that according to this study from North Carolina, they say when you consume sucralose or Splenda, the compound is converted by gut bacteria into a similar molecule called sucralose 6-acetate. The sucralose 6-acetate is the substance thought to damage DNA and possibly cause cancer. Now, however, Splenda, which is probably the most frequently used form of sucralose, the company that makes it responded to the study by saying, quote unquote, we rigorously and routinely test and monitor for any impurities in our products. We can confirm that sucralose 6-acetate is not present in Splenda brand sucralose. And the researchers who made the statement that sucralose can cause cancer did not test Splenda products in this study. This study involved what they call an in vitro study, where they exposed human blood cells to sucralose 6-acetate, and they found it caused breaks or strand breaks in the DNA. That's basically kind of a mutation or damage to DNA, and that's what can cause cancer. Let's see, what else can I say about this? Basically, I don't think it's any real problem because, again, sucralose has been around for a while. Hundreds of, God knows how many people have used it. It's been extensively tested. And as I say, this Splenda form, which is the most commonly formed, that doesn't even have sucralose 6-acetate. But let's say other sucralose products, there's no actual human evidence that shows that it can cause human cancer. So the thing is that there was a study in 2022 published in the British Medical Journal where a group of French researchers found that consumption of sucralose was linked to a higher risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, and coronary heart disease. Another 2022 study published in the journal Cell found that sucralose and saccharin could potentially elevate blood sugar levels, which could lead to a higher risk for type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and strokes. But I think the thing to remember about this is that, and I'm going to just leave it off at this, is by saying that only the dose determines the poisons. In relation to sucralose, first of all, the potential carcinogen identified in this study by North Carolina researchers doesn't exist in Splenda, which is the most common commercial form, so we could rule that out right off the bat. But let's say other forms of sucralose that are not Splenda, there's an outside chance that your gut bacteria could convert some of it into this carcinogen. However, even there, you'd have to be ingesting massive amounts. And very few people, you'd have to be crazy. I'm talking like 30 diet sodas that contain Splenda or whatever. If only the dose determines the poison. So, in other words, the bottom line is if you consume normal amounts of whether it's aspartame or Splenda, you're not going to have any problems. If you start to take huge amounts, then you could run into problems. And that's the best way to sum up all this stuff. I wouldn't worry about it. Speaking for myself, I don't think I use any Splenda at the moment. Let me think. I think there's some aspartame. I drink a sugar-free kind of flavored beverage, and I believe it has sucralose. It has aspartame in it. But the FDA mandates that ingredients be listed in order of content. And when I look at this bottle of this sugar-free water that I drink, aspartame is the very last out of maybe 15 ingredients, including, flavorings and all that. Aspartame is the last listed ingredient, which means it has minute, tiny, tiny quantities. I'd have to drink probably about, I'm estimating maybe 20, 30 bottles a day of this water, and I actually drink maybe one bottle at the most. So I'm not worried about aspartame. Some aspartame also appears in various protein powders. Sometimes they'll use Splenda instead. But again, if you look at the ingredient list, you'll almost always find that the artificial sweetener, whether aspartame or sucralose, is at the bottom. It's one of the last ingredients. That means they put just enough in the protein powder to add a touch of sweetness to it, not enough to cause any harm. So I'll end it. Don't worry about artificial sweetness. As further information comes out, I'll either write about it in my Applied Metabolics publication or do an updated video. But right now, I don't think it's any point of contention. Regardless of these scare videos you see on YouTube or articles or blogs warning about the dangers of artificial sweeteners. Personally, I've looked at a ton of the research regarding these substances. I think most of these scare tactics are just that, bullshit scare tactics. But then again, you have to understand that about 95% of the informational videos on YouTube contain misleading or outright wrong information, including, this is a surprising factoid, including a lot of the videos made by health professionals, medical doctors, people with PhDs. You would think they'd know better, but they still post garbage information on their YouTube videos. I see it all the time. Unfortunately, most people don't have the scientific background or knowledge to discern fact from crap. And, they figure this guy has a PhD or an MD. They must be telling the truth. They must know what they're talking about. No. They are humans. They are fallible like anyone else. Who knows why they're making these videos? Maybe they have some sort of financial incentive. I don't know. I can't answer that question. But anyway, if you want more information about nutrition, here's my spiel. You ready? If you want more information about nutrition, exercise science, ergogenic aids, anti-aging research, effective fat loss techniques, hormonal therapy, supplement science, which ones work, which ones don't, women's health and fitness, all of this is covered each month in my Applied Metabolics, www.appliedmetabolics.com, 40 to 50 pages, no ads, no bullshit, solid evidence-based information that includes my over 60 years of study and experience that cannot be matched. It can't be duplicated. I don't think anyone has the background I have as far as consistent study and research over 6 decades. So subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, send me an email, and I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolic Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise, and general health. Really interesting stuff, hot off the press. I'm talking brand new stuff. And of course, it's this Facebook page is only open to current subscribers. It's a private page. The subscribers who do participate in the private Facebook page, they can also ask me questions or discuss anything they might have read in Applied Metabolics or anything else that comes to mind. I have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics web page. That's only for subscribers who could email me short questions about anything they read in Applied Metabolics or anything that comes to mind related to nutrition, exercise. And as an appreciation of their subscription, I will answer their questions. Again, this only applies to current subscribers. I do not accept or respond to unsolicited questions, whether it's sent to my Applied Metabolics page or whether it's emailed to me personally. I'm sorry, but I don't have the time. I have a limited amount of time, and I'd rather give that to the people that are supporting my work. Let me see, what else can I say? If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. New dog coming any day now, folks. Any day now, there's going to be a new dog. I'll introduce him here on my channel. You'll see whether possibly a female, male. I don't know. Makes no difference. But there will be a new dog coming up very soon. Take care. Thanks for listening.